Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2D Board Gamers. My name is Dave.
And I'm Dirk.
And today we're going to take a look at the Psylocke hero for Marvel Champions. She came in the next evolution wave. She came out the same day as Angel. And her big thing is playing psionic cards. So
Yep.
let's take a look at let's take a look at her kit.
All right, so here in alter ego form, she's Betsy Braddock. She's got a recovery of 3. She has both the mutant and the psionic keywords. With having that psionic keyword here on her alter ego side is actually important, which means you can actually play cards that deal with psionic while, if they're not a hero action, which there are some out there, then you can play them while you are on either side because she'll have this on both sides. But as part of her setup, you put your 2 psi energy upgrades into play, and they are both permanent. And they come in sign knife face up. Now these are double sided. We'll get to those in just a second. But as an action, as an alter ego action, you can exhaust one of the psi energy upgrades, and you can shuffle a psionic card from your discard pile into your deck once per turn.
Okay.
Well, I guess technically, if you've got some way to unexhaust them, you could do it again because it didn't say once per turn. But did it?
Nope.
Nope, it did not. So you could, as we haven't actually explored that yet.
Yeah, you exhaust one. So you could do it twice, I guess, because you got 2 of them.
Yep.
Psylocke. So she is a 1/1/2 with a star on each um, ability. Psi energy control. Interrupt. When you use one of Psylocke's basic powers, thwart attack defense, you may flip one Psi energy upgrade.
Optional, not forced.
Yeah. Okay. And as alluded, we have 2 different, well, they're double sided, but we have 2 Psi energy weapons.
Okay, so the psi knife side is they're both energy weapons. It is permanent. With Psylocke gets +1 thwart for each of these that she has up. She gets this, uh, and then you can exhaust the psi knife, generate a mental resource, and then you may flip this card. So it is not forced. So you can choose this. You kind of manipulate which side they're on. The Psy Katana side is a restricted permanent, so you do have to keep that in mind. It is restricted, so if you're playing other restricted cards, you do have to kind of be careful that you don't have both of these up at the same time unless you have some way to avoid like the side holster or something. But for each Psy Katana that you've got up, you get +1 attack, and your basic attacks gain piercing. You can exhaust the Psy Katana, generate a strength resource, and then you may flip this card over to the other side. So natively, they do have the ability that if you use that resource, you can flip them.
Okay. Then her signature ally is Angel. He's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points. Aerial X Force, so team building would work with him. Um, Response: after you play Angel from your hand, you can ready your identity.
So it does have to be from your hand. So if you're playing leadership and you're using something like a call for backup or something like that, then it does not necessarily, you don't get the ability then. It does have to be played from your hand. All right, so next up, we've got 2 copies of Flurry of, or 3 copies, I'm sorry, a Flurry of Blades. It's a 3-cost event. It's a psionic attack. As a hero action, you can deal 2 damage to the enemy, and for each copy of Psi Knife you have control that is under your control, you can choose an enemy and confuse it. Again, if you have multiple copies, if you have both your Psi Knives up, you can do two different enemies. But for each Psi Katana you control, you can choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. So, of course, the confuse, you can only do that. It's only useful to do those to the same enemy if it has steady. But with the Psi Katanas, you can deal the 2 damage to either 2 different enemies or the same enemy. It doesn't matter either way there.
All right. The next, we have 3 copies of Mental Detection. It's a 2-cost event. Psionic Thwart. Hero action, thwart. Remove 1 threat from a scheme. For each Psi Knife you control, remove 2 additional threat from that scheme. So you could do up to 5. For each Psi Katana you control, you could draw a card. So the scheme, you can have 1 and 1. And if you spend the resource on the weapon, you can flip, and then whatever side they're on when you finally resolve the card is when you check to see what side they're on.
Yep, and I love the mask that she wears, and mine's kind of like that.
It's not a mask.
I don't care. It's a mask. As far as I'm concerned, it's a mask.
It's a psychic projection of her butterfly form.
Mask. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we have the Psionic Redirect. It is a 2-cost event. You've got 3 copies of this in your deck. It's a Psionic Defense event, and then when you would take any amount of damage from an attack, an enemy attack, you prevent 2 of that damage, and for each Psi Katana that you have control of, you can prevent an additional 2 damage. For each Psi Knife you control, you confuse that enemy. So as far as if you have 2 Psi Knives up, the double confuse only really matters if the enemy has steady. However, the 2 knives or any combination thereof still works. You still get the full ability then whenever you use that.
Okay.
But it is nice to actually use that double stun to stun a steady enemy.
Okay. Wait, did I?
We go to the numbers.
Oh, there was 2 copies.
Oh, okay.
I was like going where there, I was missing the other telepathic suggestion here. Okay, so there was 2 copy. I don't know if we said
2 copy. Yeah, I might have said 3 because I had 3 cards.
Yeah.
Okay. I had one too many cards in my hand. There was only two of the Psionic Redirects.
Right. Okay. Then we have 2 copies of telepathic suggestion. It's a 2-cost event. And it's Psionic Hero Interrupt. When you reveal a card from the encounter deck, cancel its when revealed effect. For each Psi Katana you control, you could choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. For each Psi Knife you control, choose a scheme and remove 1 threat from it. So it's a nice way to manipulate, or if you have 1 and 1, you could do 2 damage and remove a threat.
But
the nice thing is you can cancel, and it's any card from the encounter deck. So it could be an obligation, or Shadows of the Past.
And it does not replace in this case.
Right.
So that's important because a lot of the encounter cancellations will replace it with the next card. These do not. All right, so now we've got 1 copy of the training regimen. It's a 1-cost training support. As an action, you can exhaust the training regimen, search your deck for a skill card, and add it to your hand. Then you shuffle, but if you're in hero form, you discard a card from your hand. So if you're in Betsy, you get to search for one. You don't have to shuffle, but if you are Psylocke, you will have to shuffle, or you will have to discard a card afterwards.
Now, the nice thing about this is, so in her kit, she's got 3 skill upgrades that you actually discard to do something. So this stays out. So this is a way to get those upgrades back.
However, it doesn't say that it has to be a hero specific one.
Right.
So you can use that if you are using an aspect specific skill card.
Sure. But it's designed for these 3 cards. But yeah, there are more cards that can benefit from it, of course. Okay, so the first one is Martial Art Training. It's a 1-cost upgrade. It's a skill. Psylocke gets +1 defense. After Psylocke defends against an attack, discard Martial Art Training to ready her.
Okay, the next one we've got here is the Psionic Training. It's a 1-cost upgrade. It's a skill, but Psylocke ignores the guard and patrol keywords while you have this out. And as a hero response, after Psylocke thwarts, you can discard the Psionic Training to confuse an enemy. Again, that is not a forced response, so you can just leave it out and take advantage of the first part of this card.
All right, and then the last card in her kit, and the third of the skill series, it's a 2-cost upgrade, Weapons Training. It's a skill. Psylocke gains Retaliate 1. Hero response. After Psylocke attacks, discard Weapon Training. Ready each weapon upgrade you control.
Again, not forced.
Right. And you do have and you do exhaust your Psi energies, and they are weapons, so it's really nice to get them back.
Yep.
When you need them. Okay, so the next thing is, so in the next evolution, we decided to go over the obligations and the Nemesis set because they're tied in really nicely with the heroes.
Yep.
So first is her obligation.
So her obligation here is body swap. So body swapped here, you give it to Betsy, of course, but you cannot flip your Psi Katana upgrades. Unfortunately, because of the next part, whenever this is revealed, you automatically flip your Psi energy upgrades to the Psi Katanas and exhaust them. So that means, each one of those. So that means you flip them over to Katana and then you can't flip them out. So yes, you can still use them if you don't get rid of this right away, but you are limited to it's only generating the strength resources and you're not getting the additional thwart on them. Right. And then as an alter ego action, you can discard a psionic card from your hand to get rid of to discard this obligation. Again, it discards, but because it's part of the X-Force series, They do not go away. In fact,
Right.
is it just the X Force or is it
No,
all the
there's other
mutants?
ones that do too. It's like some of like
Yeah, some
Magneto's
yeah,
doesn't.
some of the it basically several of the mutants
Yeah,
obligations do not go
right.
away.
It seems
They
like it
just get
kind of
discarded.
really triggered with X Force.
Yeah,
And one thing to note is your katanas are restricted. So if you had other restricted items, like you go, oh, I'm just always going to be Psy Knife, and now since the Psy weapons are permanent, they will, when you start
yeah, you
counting,
can't discard them.
you can't discard those. So you could lose some restricted cards, and you're going to see one later on. But
Yeah, so if
yeah,
you don't have a way to avoid the limit of 2 restricted cards,
yeah,
you do have that risk.
yeah. So like if you had sonic rifles or something,
Yep.
Okay. Now her signature nemesis is Chimera. She's a marauder, psionic. One scheme, one attack with a star, 5 hit points. The star is force interrupt. When Chimera activates against you, she gets plus X scheme and plus X attack for this activation. X is the number of mental resources on cards you control. All right. And then her side scheme.
Right. So the side scheme here is interdimensional plunder. It is when revealed, you place 1 threat here for each upgrade in play. Now, if you note, this is not each upgrade you control. So if you're in a multiplayer game, this could add quite a few threat. But it only comes with 2 by itself. So if you don't have a lot out, if it comes out early or you're not playing with the lot, then I mean, of course, obviously you're playing Psylocke and she has 2 permanents. So it's got a minimum of 4, but it could get quite a bit more depending on how many upgrades are in play at the time this comes out, and it does have an acceleration token built into it. So, yep,
Yep. Which is why it's her nemesis side scheme,
yes,
because she's got 2 permanent upgrades. All right, so we got an attachment here, psychic illusion attached
and,
to your identity.
and there's 2 copies of this, right?
No, that's
Oh no, oh, it's the next card.
when you attack an enemy, name a resource type, then discard the top card of your deck. If that card does not have the resource of the name type, change the target of this attack to a friendly character of your choice and discard.
See, so another reason to play Atlas Bear, even though we do not have her included in, we don't have that card specifically pulled, but she is really nice to counteract the ability of that card. All right, so then the last thing we have here is this is the one that we've got 2 copies of. It's the Telekinetic Dragon. I love the artwork on this card, by the way. But it is the Treachery card from her Nemesis set. Like I said, 2 copies of them. But when you're revealed, you take X indirect damage, where X is the number of mental resource on cards you control. And if X is 0, then this card will get Surge. Also, as a boost, with this one comes out, you can choose to either spend a mental resource or confuse your enemies. So if you have both side katanas out, you don't have that mental on a stick. If you have them out, then you do have it, but you're also worried about other cards in her Nemesis set that deal with the mentals. So
All right. So now we're going to go to aspect cards. So we're going to start with aggression.
all right.
So,
Dave loves this card, so we'll let him do.
well, I always like Boom Boom in the comics too. All right. So, yeah, we got Boom Boom here. She's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points, X Force. Exhaust Boom Boom, add 1 boom counter to her. Then you may discard Boom Boom to deal 1 damage to each enemy for each boom counter on her. And her flavor text
I
is
missed some.
tick, tick, tick. Yeah, there's like 8 boom came out.
Dave's actually counted them before. It's on there 8 times.
Yeah.
All right, the next one we've got here is Shatterstar. Shatterstar is a 4-cost ally, thwarts for 2, attacks for 2. When he thwarts, he does take 2 consequential damage, but he's got 4 hit points. He has the X-Force keyword. So as an interrupt, when Shatterstar enters or attacks a minion, you engage that minion. If you're already engaged with that minion, then Shatterstar gets +1 attack, which would make him an attack 3 if he's attacking a minion already engaged with you. I like this because it's an aggression card, and aggression does have ways to gain minions to make sure that you've got minions that are engaged with you, so you can get that extra boost on Shatterstar out of that. And since they share the X-Force keyword, you can get an attack 3 for a cost of 3, so that's pretty nice. All right.
All right. Then we have a Cybo attack. It's a 2-cost event. Attack, psionic. Play only if your hero has a psionic trait. Hero attack action, deal 4 damage to an enemy. This attack gains range, so you can ignore retaliate.
Alrighty. And then the last aggression card that we've got here is the Psychic Assault. It's also a 2-cost psionic attack event. You can only play this one if you have the psionic trait, which I think all of these psionic events have this, but
Yeah.
I believe that's the case. But as a hero action, you can deal 3 damage to an enemy and then confuse that enemy. So it damages it deals the damage and confuses. It is less expensive because of that limitation of having the psionic keyword, but of course you've got that, so you don't care about that limitation.
Yeah. And now we're only concentrating on either X Force or Psionic, but you can
Yeah.
always, if you're playing an aggression deck, you could always throw in Home Technique and buff those up. Martial Prowess, will give you a discount and things like that.
Yep.
But we're not including that because that's any hero can do that.
Yep.
All right, for Justice, we got Blindfold here. She's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 0 attack, 2 hit points. Psionic X-Men. Response: after Blindfold enters play, look at the top 5 cards of the encounter deck, discard one of those cards, and put the rest back in the same order. So you can only sort of manipulate the encounter deck. You can remove a really annoying card, like maybe one that has 3 or 4 boost icons, or like, oh, we don't, Shadows is going to come up, and I really don't want Shadows to come up as someone's encounter card, so you can cancel that. But it also allows you to plan the next turn, because like we play 2 players, so the first 2 cards are going to be boosts for for each of us,
unless something else comes up to change that, like a player decking or something.
Yeah. So you do have to like are you going to be decking this turn, that kind of thing. So you do want to coordinate when you play this card to maximize the encounter deck manipulation.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is that discard is a requirement. It is not optional. Right. So you do have to discard one, but I mean, generally you're going in 5, you're generally going to see at least one of them that you are more than happy to discard.
Yeah.
Usually.
You're never happy with any encounter cards, but yeah, I mean,
well,
you could find 4.
I don't know. There are times I'm kind of happy with a symbiote coming out.
Well, if you're looking for
if I'm looking for
a hero bait or something, I guess.
I'm looking for clickbait. We'll call them clickbait. How about that?
No.
Yeah, because I click them and they're gone.
Okay. All right. Next.
So next is Chamber. So Chamber is a 4-cost ally, thwarts for 2, attacks for 2, has 3 health, but has the psionic trait here. And Chamber takes 1 less consequential damage after he attacks a confused enemy. So since in this case you are playing Justice, Justice does have quite a few ways to between Justice and Psionic, you have quite a few ways to actually confuse enemies. So these are good choices. We didn't pull a lot of cards that can do that because there's several of them out there, several different ways to do it.
Her precon came with like float like a butterfly,
different cards
and sonic rifle and things like that. So there's ways to confuse. That's an actual deck build concept that you could do, which would work good with her.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of these psionic allies that prefer to have an enemy confused whenever they activate. Speaking of, as soon as I can pick it up, there's the next one.
All right, so we got Cypher here. He's a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack with a star, 2 hit points, X Force. After Cypher attacks and damages a confused enemy, draw a card.
All right. Similar thing, but that one you get a card draw out of it. Here we've got Marvel Girl. Marvel Girl is a 3-cost ally. She thwarts for 2, attacks for 1. She's got 3 hit points, but she does have the psionic trait, so you can use the team building to reduce her cost. But when she attacks a minion, you can remove X threat from the main scheme, where X is that minion's printed scheme. So here a lot of times you're going to want to pick a minion that's got a higher scheme. You get an attack off of them, possibly kill them, hopefully. But then you get to remove threat as well as the attack on the minion at the same time. So she's a nice one to play. Again, you can get her off for 2 if you use a team building there.
All right, and our last Justice card is Psychic Manipulation, 3-cost event, Psionic Thwart. Play only if your identity has a psionic trait. Interrupt Thwart. When the villain schemes, this activation removes threat instead of placing it. Now, it is not a hero interrupt, so you could do this when you're an alter ego. You do have the psionic trait when you're alter ego. And instead of adding, say, 4 threat to the main, you're now subtracting 4 threat, so you've got like a net 8 swing, which is really nice.
Yeah, so there are other heroes that I've played this one that you are required to actually be in hero form because that's the only side that you have psionic in. So this is nice that she can actually use it when she goes down instead of waiting for another hero to go down on your team or for a advance to come up.
Actually, I believe all the psionic people
Are all the psionic ones? I
are
didn't
both
think they
sides. I
were.
think because Cable earns psionic, and I think Jean Grey has
Earn psionic, but doesn't start with it, right?
right. But it says the Cable and Nathan Summers when you get rid of the Technovirus purge.
Okay.
I think it says the Nathan Summers and Cable gain psionic, and I think Jean Grey is psionic on both sides.
Okay, so yeah, I might be wrong there, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is nice the fact that you can use that in either side there. So,
Yeah.
all right, so moving on to our leadership cards. The first thing we've got here, speaking of Cable, is the Cable ally. So he is a 4-cost ally. He thwarts for 2. He attacks for 3. He does take 2 consequential when he attacks, but he's got 3 health. Has the psionic and X-Force keywords both. But after he thwarts and defeats a side scheme, you get to draw a card. Now, if the deck isn't themed around side schemes, or you don't have a lot of side schemes in, or player side schemes, I guess, or you don't have a lot of side schemes in the encounter deck, then you may not be able to use this ability a lot. But that 3 attack is still nothing to sneeze at. I mean, and because he's got the psionic and the X Force, you can use a team building to reduce his cost by 1. So yeah, it's a pretty decent one there, even if you don't have a lot of side schemes. But that card draw is always a nice bonus if you get it, because who doesn't love card draw?
All right, then we got Caliban here. He's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points, psionic, X-Force, response. After Caliban enters play, discard cards from the top of your deck until an X-Factor, X-Force, or X-Men ally is discarded. Add that ally to your hand. Um, Now we were, when this guy first came out, it's like, well, the only X factor is protection, so the only person that can use this really is Spider-Woman. Now with Children of the Atom, that I think that strengthens this a little bit, but yeah, the X factor is still kind of a little weak on this card, but with Children of the Atom, you can at least now use team building exercise to play your X Factor or X-Men allies. So that's good.
Yep. All right, so next
And you
up,
can get multiple man.
yeah, Dave's always looking for an excuse to play multiple man.
He's fun.
All right, so next up we've got Domino. She's a 3-cost ally. She thwarts for 1. She attacks for 1. She's a member of the posse, but more importantly for this, for our purposes, she's got X-Force. She does have 3 health. And after response, after you use one of her basic powers, you can swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. So being able to manipulate your hand and your deck a little bit, always a nice thing. I mean, it's not always something you're necessarily going to need to do, but it's one of those that if you can do it or if you need to do it, it is very nice to be able to do that. And so she obviously, she provides that ability. So I do like that. And again, that cost reduction is pretty sweet for her.
All right, so next we have Phantom X. He's a 4-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points, psionic X-Force. Response. After Phantom X enters play, search your deck and discard pile for Eva and put it into play. So Eva is a 0-cost support. That's a vehicle. If Phantom X is not in play, discard Eva. Action. Exhaust Eva, choose. Remove 1 threat from a scheme, deal 1 damage to an enemy, heal 1 damage for Phantom X. So with Eva, you could turn Phantom X into like a Voltron and he would take no consequential damage, which is nice. And Eva can also be, so Eva, if Eva's in your hand and say Phantom X is in your hand at the same time, you can use Eva to help partially pay for Phantom X, as Eva is useless in your deck outside of being a wild resource.
Yeah, and his ability is a response after he comes into play. By that time, you've already spent the Eva card if she was in your deck. So then she's in your discard pile and you can bring her back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Dave said, if she's in your hand and you don't have Phantom X, use her because he'll bring her back. So there's no reason to leave her sitting there unless for whatever reason you need a wild resource. It's the only reason to
There's
keep her.
no reason to hold it in your hand.
Yeah. All right, so next up we've got Kid Omega. Kid Omega is a 2-cost ally. He thwarts for 2. He attacks for 2. He has 2 hit points. But more importantly, here is he has the psionic trait. And as a response, after he comes into play, you choose one. You either spend an energy resource to deal 1 damage to an enemy, or you spend a mental resource to remove 1 threat from a scheme. So you can kind of choose which one you spend here. Hopefully, you have both in your hand, and you can kind of choose which one you need. But yeah, so you get a little extra boost out of him whenever he comes into play. And the fact of only having the 2 hit points makes him a really good target for something like rapid response, to be able to pull him back and do it a second time if you have the resources. Although,
This is from your hand, right?
yes. Oh, no, no, no. You
Oh,
just
just
spend it. So you can use your katanas, I mean, your knives, if you want
no,
the
just
mental,
interplay.
right?
I was
Yeah.
okay.
So you can use your psi knives if you have those up. Unfortunately, the katanas don't help because they provide strength, but the knives will help for the thwart.
or Eva.
Yep.
All right. We got a 4-cost ally, M. 2 thwart, 3 attack with 2 consequential, 4 hit points, psionic X-Men. Response. After M enters play, defeat a minion with fewer remaining hit points than M. This is nice because this works with elite minions as well. So it's
Yep.
not restricted to just non-elites, which a lot of these kind of abilities do. So
And it was a great feeling whenever we were able to play her to kill off the Ronin ally, because they pulled that off one time, and that felt wonderful to see that happen.
yeah, the Ronin ally is from the Kree Fanatic print and play that they had a few years ago.
Yeah, but he's big and beefy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice whenever she came out and just, well, he's gone. All right, now we've got Mirage. Mirage is a 3-cost ally. Mirage has 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points. She has the psionic trait, and after she enters play, you can choose an enemy whose scheme is less than her, and you can stun that enemy. So it's always nice to be able to stun an enemy whenever you come out. Now, it does say enemy, it's not minion. So if you have one of these villains that has a low scheme, then yeah, it's nice. You know, the schemes for one. It's nice to be able to stun them whenever you bring her out.
Yeah. Someone like Rhino or something.
Yep.
All right, then we have Phoenix. She's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points, psionic X-Men. Response. After Phoenix enters play, choose an X-Men ally. Ready that ally and heal 1 damage from it.
So yeah, to be able to use her ability, you do have to be playing other X-Men allies. But you know, yeah, there's quite a few out there. And like Dave said, you know, with the what is that one?
Children of the Atom.
Children of the Atom makes it a little bit easier to play them as well. All right, so next up here, we've got Sunspot. Sunspot is a 3-cost ally, thwarts for 1, attacks for 2. He has the X-Force keyword. He has 2 hit points. But as a response, after you play Sunspot from your hand, you can choose a player, and you deal 1 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with the chosen player for each energy resource used to pay for Sunspot. Sunspot costs 3, so if you've got a way to spend 3 energy, then you can actually, and it doesn't say printed, so you can use wilds for this. But spend 3 to pay for Sunspot. You can do 3 AoE to all the minions and the villain that are engaged to another player, with any player, including yourself if you want it. I guess technically, yes.
All right, then we have X-23 here. She's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 3 attack, 3 hit points. She's X-Force traded. After X-23 attacks and defeats an enemy, ready her. So it's really good to take out some low health minions. You can get multiple activations out of her.
Yeah, I do love the fact that it's not limited to once per turn. So that 3 attack, you can take a few out at that time, and let it take a couple out, and then save the last activation for the villain. All right, and then our last leadership card that we've got here is the Psychic Kicker. It's a 0-cost event. Again, like I said, this is a psionic event, so you can only play it if you have the psionic trait. But you can ready an ally as a hero action, and that ally gets +2 thwart and +2 attack for the next basic thwart or attack action this phase. So this is a nice one to play on that X-23 ally that we just showed, because then you can give her 5 for one of those attacks. Unfortunately, it is only the next activation, but at 0 cost, that 2 for a single activation, still it's a pretty sweet deal.
And you may have more than one of them in your hand.
Yes.
All right, then we're moving on to protection here. So we have a 4-cost ally elixir, 1 thwart, 1 attack. She's X-Force, or he's X-Force, I'm not even sure.
I believe X is a he. What's the name?
Josh.
Josh, yep.
Josh Foley. Okay. 3 hit points. Play only if your identity has the X-Force or X-Men trait. Response. After Elixir attacks or thwarts, heal 1 damage from another friendly character.
All right, here. So next up, we've got Karma. Karma is a 4-cost ally. She thwarts 0 and attacks for 0. She only has 1 hit point. However, all is not lost because she has the psionic trait, so you can play her for 3 if you use a team building. But as a response, after you play Karma from your hand, you can choose a non-elite minion. It does have to be non-elite. While she's in play, you can take control of that minion, treat it as though it's controlled, and its text box is blank. So that means even keywords because it doesn't maintain keywords here. It's
I mean, trait.
Traits. That's what I meant. Traits. Yes. If its thwart is equal to its printed scheme, its thwart is equal to its printed scheme. Of course, its attack stays the same, and it takes two consequential damage after it activates. So, but yeah, so you can take. But because of that, I mean, you've got stuff like the sentinels that you can get some big sentinels. I think what they get up to 8 hit points or so.
Yeah.
And they are non-elite, so you can get a big beefy sentinel up there that can do some swinging for you.
Yeah.
A couple of turns.
And you've locked out one of the upgrades.
Yep.
That gets attached to them until they're defeated.
Yes.
All right. So next we got.
So do the upgrades automatically fall off of them?
No.
They don't? Okay. I didn't know because they lost their keyword. I didn't know if they'd lose the upgrade.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. 4-cost ally, Siren, 2 thwart, 2 attack, with a star, 3 hit points.
Superstar.
Aerial X-Force. Response. After Siren attacks, stun a minion.
Hey, there's the stun that we were talking about earlier. Of course, this is in protection and not justice. But,
Yep.
Or, yeah. So next up, we've got Warpath. Warpath is a 4-cost ally, has a 2 thwart, 2 attack, does take 2 consequential whenever he thwarts, and he has 4 hit points. But he's got the X-Force keyword, and he comes in with the toughness. But after Warpath defends against an attack, you can play an event with a hero action ability from your hand. You do have to pay the cost, but it allows you to play an event during the enemy phase. So that's always a nice thing.
Next, we have Psyflail. It's a 2-cost event. Aerial Psionic. Play only if your identity has a psionic trait. Hero response.
Almost sci-flail that card
Attack.
in 20 minutes.
After you defend against an enemy attack, deal 3 damage to that enemy and stun it. So there's actually a new a protection playstyle where you could like stun the enemy, throw in tackle or something as well, and you can do a stun lock protection.
Yeah, there's some aggressive protection decks that you can build nowadays that weren't really possible in the early days of the game. In fact, yeah, that was one of the things in the early days of the game. Protection to me always felt like it was more reactionary, and it was in the early parts of the game, it was probably my least favorite aspect to play, but they've definitely made some changes over the last couple of years that make protection a lot more fun to play than it used to be.
Yeah, used to be you were the medic, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, the medic and the meat shield, that was it. And you weren't even a meat shield a lot back in the early days.
Well, yeah, it wasn't until like Doctor Strange and the Hulk and some of those, hero packs that came out that
Multiple
gave you
activations,
desperate defense and the stunning that kind of thing.
Yep. All right. So the last protection card we've got here is Psychic Misdirection. It's a 2-cost event. Again, a psionic event, so you do have to be psionic to play it. But when an enemy attacks you, you can choose a different enemy, and the damage from the attack is dealt to the chosen enemy instead of you. So it's always nice whenever you can make them fight each other instead of you. And the great thing here is it doesn't matter if it is the villain. You can make the villain not take out a great big ally, and the ally won't attack you then. So that's always a nice bonus there whenever you can do that. But just sheer fun of watching one attack the other. That's always a great thing.
Rhino with 2 charges, and you're like going, okay.
Yeah.
He's got overkill, but I'm going to have him attack a minion instead.
Yep. Okay, so,
all right, and then our only pool card that we're going to include is Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
That song stuck in my head.
Okay. She's a 4-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, no consequential damage, like the pool allies. She has 4 hit points. Psionic X-Force, interrupt. When a treachery is revealed, deal 2 damage to Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Cancel that treachery's when revealed effect. But she does give you a hazard, though.
Yeah, and the great thing about her, though, is, yes, you do have the hazard, but it does not replace itself. So you can cancel that and do not have to worry about replacing it.
Yep.
All right, so now we're moving on to the basic aspect cards. So the first one we've got here is Cannonball. Now, Cannonball is one I absolutely love playing it with Angel, who came out at the same time as Psylocke. But Cannonball is still a worthwhile addition because Cannonball does attack for 2, thwart for 2. Of course, he's only got the 2 health, but because the X Force trait, you can get him out for 2. And he'll take his interrupt here is when he would take any amount of consequential damage, you can reduce that amount of damage by X, where X is the number of aerial cards in your hand. Now, if you're playing Psylocke, you're probably not using a lot of aerial cards. I mean, you could always add aerial cards in there if you're going to use them, but you're not going to be using anywhere near as many as you're going to be using with somebody like, say, Angel, not Angel. Angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's
If you
still
do an Angel Psylocke team up, then this
Yeah.
card should go in the Angel deck.
Yes, most definitely. But I mean, again, because of that X Force trait, you can get him out for 2, and he is a 2/2. So I mean, he's always a decent card to play. So next.
Next is Deadpool. So he's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack. He's a mercenary X Force. So you can use team building with mercenary.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't just call him a merc.
3 hit points, probably because they're going to use mercenaries.
Yeah.
Force interrupt. When Deadpool would be defeated by consequential damage, heal 3 damage from him instead. Add an acceleration token to the main scheme. Cable, not interested. I stream everything.
So yeah, that's the one thing about him. I mean, when he comes out, he's not the easiest one in the world to get rid of, but so you've got to be ready to deal with that acceleration token. But I mean, he's always a fun one to play though.
Yeah. And it is a forced interrupt. So.
Yep. So it's not optional. All right. So next up here we've got Deathlock. Deathlock is a 4-cost ally, thwarts for 2, attacks for 2, has 3 health. He does have the X Force keyword though. And as a hero response, after he enters play, you can choose an upgrade in any player's discard pile. It does not have to be yours. And it does have to have a cost of 1 or less. And it has to be one that you can attach to Deathlock, but you can pull that out and attach that upgrade to him for free. And I do think I can't remember.
I think they all cost 1.
But if not, there's very few of them that don't cost 1.
Yeah, I can't think of any that cost 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, and there is sidearm, which is a basic, so it really doesn't matter what aspect you play. There's at least 1 upgrade that you could, attach to them.
Yeah, to make sure that you've got one, in your discard.
Right, but if you're playing leadership, you've got the most.
Yep, you've got several there.
Yeah. Okay, we got Legion here. He's a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points. Psionic X-Men. After Legion uses a basic power, discard the top card of your deck. If that card has a printed resource is energy, deal 2 damage. Mental, remove 2 threat. And strength, heal 2 damage from Legion.
Yeah, and it is printed, so unfortunately you get nothing if it's a wild. Yeah. So there's another reason to throw Atlas Bear into the deck.
Yeah.
I love Atlas Bear.
And not include him in your Domino deck.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you definitely don't want to be using him in Domino. All right. So next up, we've got Morrow. Morrow here is a 2-cost ally, thwarts for 1, attacks for 2, has 2 health, does have the X-Force keyword. You can only play them if you have X-Force or X-Men. But after Morrow enters play, you deal 2 damage to an enemy. So, yeah, it's always great whenever you come in, deal 2 damage, and then because of the 2 attack, you can turn around and hit for 2. So you can take out a pretty hefty minion with Marrow if you need to, or you can split it up and take out a couple of minions if they're small enough or have taken enough damage.
And you won't look so pretty once I get you. All right, then we got Pete Wisdom here. 4-cost ally, 3.
You were going to say Wilson, weren't you?
No, I was.
Okay.
It blurred there.
Okay.
Pete Wisdom, 4-cost ally, 3 thwart with 2 consequential, 2 attack, 1 consequential, 3 hit points, X-Force. Play only if your identity has the X-Force trait. Response: when you resolve the win revealed effect of a treachery card, heal 1 damage from Pete Wisdom. So you have to resolve the effect of the treachery. So those cards that cancel the treachery card, he wouldn't heal. You do have to take whatever the treachery does to you, but you could heal him, and if you limit it to just attacking with him, you could technically keep him out forever. But thwart, you'd have to be a little more careful.
Yeah, so see, it's entirely possible you have cards like Pete Wilson and Phantom X out there, and you could, if you're playing leadership or whatever, you could have a couple of cards that stay out there for a while.
Yep.
All right, so next up, we've got The professor himself, Charles Xavier, Professor X. He's a 3-cost ally. He thwarts for 3. He does not have, or he has a 0 attack. Now, it's not a dash, so you can actually buff that up if you choose to. However, more than likely, if you're playing him, you're playing him for the thwart and the ability. As a forced response, after he enters play, you choose one of these. You can either confuse the villain, you can stun a minion, or you can ready an X-Men character. Now, you're X-Force, you're not X-Men, so you're not going to be able to ready yourself unless you have Children of the Atom. But you can use it to ready any other X-Men character in the game if that's the option that you choose to go with here. However, unfortunately, at the end of the round, if the professor is still in play, you do have to discard him. So you're probably going to want to use it for a chump blocker as long as the villain or the attacker does not have overkill. Even if they have overkill, it's a good chance you might want to do that anyways because he's still going to stop 2 of it. But
And
yeah,
he is the one of the founding members of the Disposables.
yes.
So him, Nick Fury Sr., and Nick Fury from the
Yeah.
upcoming Nick Fury article.
Dave currently is petitioning to have the disposables as a
group.
new keyword.
Yep. Yep. So
Talking to Marvel right now.
all right. So
It'd be a heck of a group.
so we got the White Queen here. She's a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points. Psionic X-Men, play only if your identity has the X-Force or X-Men trait. Response: after White Queen enters play, discard a status card from a character.
Yeah, and Dave pointed this out to me earlier today because I had been playing her wrong. For whatever reason, I kept playing her like she was a forced, so I would hold her in my hand because I didn't want to get rid of a good status card. I didn't want to get rid of a toughness on one of the heroes or one of the confuse or something on the villain. But Dave pointed that to me earlier. That's not a forced response. So she is actually safer to play than I thought she was.
Oh, darling, I hardly need psionic powers to manipulate you.
Yes, but she has them just the same, so you can get her out for 1 cheaper.
Yep.
All right, so next up we have the only basic event that we've got here. It is the Angel and Psylocke team up, Soaring Hearts. It costs 2, but as a hero action, you search your discard pile for an identity-specific event and add it to your hand, and then you ready both Angel and Psylocke. Now, this works with the Angel signature ally. However, if you are playing with another player that is playing Angel, of note, it works with Angel, but not Archangel. So that is important.
You'd have to coordinate with the Angel player a little bit.
And you only get to search your discard. Is it deck and discard?
Search your deck.
Yeah, your deck discard.
No, just discard.
Just your discard pile. So you don't get to look at both of them. You only get to look at yours.
But still, you do ready both.
So. Yes, you do ready both.
All right, then we've got a new resource card for psionic people. It's called the Power of the Mind. Double the number of resources this card generates while paying for a psionic card. And there's going to be some psionic cards where this mental will be very relevant.
Yep. All right, now we're gonna
skip that
just because we have to. We're gonna bring up my least favorite card.
Yeah, so I should read it because you hit this card.
No, to be honest, this is my my favorite of the X-Force cards. It is one that even if I don't have the X-Force trait, I will try to find a way to cheat this out, and there are a couple of ways to do it. But
and if it was my turn to read the card, Dirk would read it anyway.
I would read this anyways. But no, the iPack here is a 1-cost support. It's an X-Force vehicle. So you do have to have the X-Force trait to play this card under normal circumstances. There are ways to cheat this card out, and one of those is build support is one way to do it, and that is one to where it's a side scheme worth adding if you want to try to do that. One of my favorite ways to do it, it's really fun to do this, is to I love to play Rogue with the iPack in my deck because you can put it in your deck, you just can't play it unless you have the trait. So make sure that you've got an X-Force character in your deck or on the table somewhere so that you can borrow their identity whenever you want to play this card. This is auto included in any X-Force deck that I play. And as a hero action, you exhaust the iPack and you deal 1 encounter card to any player on the table, and that player draws 2 cards. They do not have to be in the hero form, even though you have to be to use it. They don't have to be. So you can use this if either you don't need the cards or whatever, and give them to another player, or if you can't handle the extra encounter card for whatever reason, you're low on hit points, something you don't want to take an extra hit, you can give it to somebody else who can handle it. So we love this card. We use it a lot, but it's one of my favorites in the X Force wave.
Okay. And one of my favorites for the mutant trilogy is Moira Matega. She's a two-cost support. She's a persona. Play only if your identity has a mutant trait, so you'd have to be alter ego to player. Response: after a mutant alter ego changes into hero form, exhaust Moira Matega. That hero controller draws a card. So it's a very cheap Avengers Mansion.
Yeah. Well, that only works under certain circumstances, but still.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have the Stepford Cuckoos. So the Stepford Cuckoos, they are a three-cost support. The triplets are a psionic persona. You play only if your identity has the X-Men trait. So you do have to have the X-Men trait. So this is one that does require a little bit of an extra build, but I do think it's worth it. But you can play this as Psylocke because of Children of the Atom, the new card that recently came out.
Or if someone made you an
yeah, or if somebody
X-Men.
makes you an honorary X-Men. But
Yeah.
the easier way to do this to guarantee that you can do it is with the Children of the Atom. But it comes in with three psi counters, and hey, it's great. You've got psi cards, so psi thematic there. But as an interrupt, when a player reveals a treachery, you exhaust the Stepford Cuckoos and remove one of the psi counters. You cancel the effects of that card and discard it, and then you reveal another encounter card to replace it. So, it is only treacheries. But it enables you to do this in. I think previously there was like one or two protection cards, and then Justice had a couple of cards that did it, but there were not a whole lot of ways to do this. I also think, what was it, Tenacity or something?
No.
What was that?
There's like
There was a couple of other cards, but
Get Behind Me.
yeah,
There's a couple.
yeah,
But the nice thing is this is not a hero interrupt. So you could
yes,
be an alter ego when you do it.
yes, you can do
And
this
you
on
could
either
help a
side.
teammate,
Yep.
that like they're gonna they draw shadows and it's like, oh, but I'm alter ego. Because a lot of those cancel the treacheries are usually hero actions or hero interrupts. And this one you could do even if you're an alter ego.
Yeah, like I said, of course, again, because of that X-Men restriction, it does require a little bit of extra setup, but we like the fact that it is a little bit thematic there because of the psionic piece of it. So you can actually use a team building to play it cheaper as long as you meet the other criteria.
Yep. Speaking of, we have team building exercises, a card
Yes.
we've been talking about for quite a while, and it would be critical for this deck. I might even probably throw two copies in because she's X Force and Psionic, and of course the Children of the Atom. Then she's also X Men and X Factor. Uh, it's a two-cost support hero action. Exhaust team building exercise. Play a card from your hand that shares a trait with your hero, reducing the resource cost by one.
Yeah, now and like Dave said, it is nice to have multiple. You can do three, but it's rare. In fact, I can't think outside of a starter deck. I don't think I've ever played three in a deck, but I've definitely played two anytime that I have a character that plays double keywords,
Yeah.
like both Angel and Psylocke do. Uh, because the great thing there is, you can only use one per card, but that allows you to play multiple cards. And since you're using multiple keywords, that's more targets for the cards. So it makes them more valuable in those decks. All right, so moving on here, we've got the Scimitar. It's a two-cost upgrade. It's a psionic weapon. Now, this isn't a restricted, so this is one of those that you do have to be a little bit careful with the Psykatanas, and you could always lose it if you don't have a way to negate the restricted restriction. But because it's a weapon, you can always throw a side holster in there, which allows you to have an additional restricted weapon out into play. But what this one does is after you play another psionic card, and there's going to be a lot of, because what is it? I think Dave counted, I think there's 10, wasn't there?
10 and just her hero kit.
Yeah, 10 in her hero kit alone. And you're almost certainly going to be building additional ones on top of that. So after you play another psionic card, you can exhaust Scimitar and deal 2 damage to an enemy. It does not have the once per turn restriction. So if you have a way to unexhaust it, you can play it again. Because it's a weapon, we've got we had the one card earlier that we saw. I can't even remember which one it was off the top of my head, but that will allow you to unexhaust all your psionic weapons. So this one will not exhaust as well with that.
All right. And then this is a good use of Power of the Mind. for the hero action part. It's a one cost upgrade telekinesis psionic superpower. So with team building, you can play it for free. Play only if your identity has a psionic trait, max one per player. Hero action: exhaust telekinesis and spend the power of the mind, effectively.
2 mental resources.
2 mental resources to deal 3 damage to an enemy.
But it's not printed, so you can do 2 wilds.
Yes, yeah.
And then the second one in that vein is telepathy here, which is also a 1 cost psionic superpower upgrade. Now, these are, I did notice, so they're both superpowers. So there's not a lot of superpowers outside of the hero aspects cards. There are a few of them, but not a lot of them. But so since she doesn't have any, this would be, or she, what, does she have one? No, she has none.
She's got one, but it's an
is it one?
upgrade, I think.
Yeah, it's an upgrade, so you play
I
it one
think.
time and it's out.
Yeah.
But so this is something, a potential target for Def Focus if you add, if you're playing an aspect that has additional ones as well. But normally you probably wouldn't be playing a Def Focus, but would be a potential reason if you wanted to make sure you could get
Oh
this
no,
out.
she doesn't have any.
But this one, again, only play if you have Psionic, but you can exhaust the telepathy and spend 2 mental resources to remove 2 threat from a scheme.
Yep.
So,
And then our final card
yep.
is X Gene. She does have a lot of events. So this is a good card for her. 1 cost upgrade. Play only if your identity has a mutant trait, so you'd have to be alter ego to play it. But then as it's a resource, you can exhaust X Gene to generate a wild resource for an identity specific event.
But then again, if you've already played Moira, then you've got a card draw when you come up as well. So
Yep.
more likely to get an event.
There's that. Yeah. So that was Psylocke and cards we think are good for her deck.
Yeah. Again, in this video, we kind of just focus mainly on either the X-Force trait or the Psionic trait, but there are definitely other builds that you could do with her, but those are 2 of the ones that we have found have a lot of options.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it.
And of course, you would include cards that you would do for any hero to get up to
Yeah,
40 cards.
yeah. If you're playing aggression, there's a good chance you're playing home techniques and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever, martial prowess.
Justice,
like
you would want some more of the confusing cards, and
Oh yeah, definitely. If you're playing Justice, that's a good one.
and actually I think you could probably argue a really strong stun lock protection as well. So you could throw in cards like tackle and things like that. So yeah. Anyways, that was our review for Psylocke. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe.